Hello, I am Eli Adashi, Professor of Medical Science from Brown University, here to speak about the genesis of the Maryland State Infertility or IVF mandate. I first became aware of this story approximately 5 years ago in the course of a bi-weekly phone conversation with Howard W. Jones, Jr. Of Norfolk fame, of IVF fame, IVF that we are celebrating this very week, the 40th anniversary of. Before too long, some contact information regarding the main protagonists was forwarded to me, and I contacted Mrs. Joanne Nitobitz and her husband, Dr. Richard Nitobitz, to set up a meeting, which followed suit in Baltimore, Maryland. At that point, the details of the story became clear, and I became all the more excited and all the more interested in writing it up. Before too long, some documents were being forwarded by mail to me, which made it possible to trace the development of the various events which culminated in the enactment of an IVF state mandate in Maryland. This is a remarkable story in a number of ways. First of all, it's a story about the power of one. It's also a story about the power of grassroots activity, which we sometimes tend to belittle or dismiss as of late. The bottom line here is that Mrs. Nitobitz, by around 1982 or 1983, suffering for a long time from primary infertility, realized that her only solution was in vitro fertilization, which at that time was underinsured and, for that matter, uninsured, and most insurance companies, in fact, didn't even hear about that possibility, let alone consider underwriting. And so the notion of a state mandate came about. Mrs. Nitobitz and her husband did everything essentially by themselves. They wrote a draft of the bill. They identified legislative sponsors, and then they proceeded to advocate for the bill during the 1985 legislative session of the Maryland Assembly. In the process, they assembled a team of approximately 200 volunteers who contributed along the way in their advocacy efforts to make this bill happen. The bill ultimately passed with comfortable margins both on the Senate and House side, and was signed into law by Governor Hughes on May the 21st, 1985. And so was born the very first state infertility/IVF mandate in the United States. That effort served as a blueprint for similar efforts in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and several other states. Still, as we speak today, some 34 states or thereabouts still lack an IVF or infertility state mandate. This is an unfortunate state of affairs, and perhaps should serve as a clarion call to all involved to redouble our efforts to make sure that IVF is underwritten nationwide, and that individuals afflicted with infertility do not have to worry about the very steep costs involved in this process otherwise. We owe a great deal of thanks to Mrs. Nitobitz and her husband and all the volunteers who made it possible. And I'm delighted that we've had this opportunity to tell their story. Thank you very much.